Belated Republic Day. Am I audible properly? Audible? Right, audible. Am I audible? Am I visible? Awesome. Cool. So we have joined a couple of minutes before. Yep. So we will be starting the class today at 11. So just give me a moment. Let me just get things up ready in my laptop. Yes. Namaste. Namaste, Dinesh. Good morning, Akhilesh. Jai Hind. Yara Praveen. Jai Hind. Yes. Title is funny. Yep. Thank you so much for reminding me. Like to start the recording, I'll start it in a while. I'll start it at 11. So, have you all, did you do the homework? Did you do the homework? Yes or no? No. I also want people to say no who have not done their homework. Awesome. Harshita says yes. Kunal says yes. Mayuresh says no. Why Mayuresh? Why Ayush? Why did you not do? Why did you not do the homework? Partial done. Please see. We have finished 9 chapters. I want you all to finish your homeworks, finish your assignments, because without doing assignment, you won't learn anything. Okay? So without doing assignment, you won't learn anything. Okay? What you have to do is watch all the videos, right? You know, there is several steps of learning. The best way to learn from this boot camp is to attend the live classes first thing. You won't learn everything in the live class at once. No, it won't happen. You will again have to go back, watch the recording of this live class and take down notes. See, there are several steps. First of all, watch the live class, watch the recording, take down notes along with the live class as well as recorded, right? Then fourth thing is do your homework, right? And then be active in the Discord. This is what you have to do. If you do all of this, that is when you will make the best out of this boot camp, this course, this live course. Okay? Awesome. So it is 11. There are, today we have a little less people joined in. I don't know why. I think it is because it was a long weekend, so people would have gone for a break. But anyways, Govind Devi Soni is writing AK. What does that mean? Cool. So let me just start with today's session. There are so many people who haven't joined in, but again, right, let us start on time. People who have joined in, I don't want to waste their time. I have started the recording here. So the recording has now started. So today's session is Jo Dikhta Hai Wo Bikta Hai. But before telling more about what this session is all about, let me first share my screen. Okay. So let me share my screen. Just give me a moment. There's screen fun share. Are you able to see me? Is it visible? Is my screen visible? Yes or no? Amazing. You people are amazing. Cool. Just let me take a poll quickly and then we'll move forward. Okay. let me also start my project. Okay, cool. Here is our about.js file, app.js. Where am I? Okay, I'm over here. If I have to make this up. Just give me a moment. I'm just setting things up. Cool. Yep. So, okay, let me just make this full screen. Terminal. Cool. This is a pain, man, right? I mean, cool. So, let's start today's session. And first of all, let me know whether am I visible and audible, true or false? I am visible and audible properly, true or false? Come on, quickly. Yep. Visible and audible properly? Hit true if I am visible and audible properly. And let us just start with today's session. Yep. Thank you so much for polling. I think it is good for everyone, right? Thank you so much for the poll. People who have not joined Discord yet, so please write an email to support@namastedev.com, right? And send your like the fee submission receipt, which you have got on your email to support@namastedev.com. We will give you access to the private Discord channel. Okay, cool. So let us start today's session. The name of today's session is Jo Dikhta Hai Wo Bikta Hai. So a lot of people might think that, Akshay, why did you keep a Hindi name? But this is a very famous proverb in Hindi, right? I'll tell you the meaning of that also, right? So it is like Jo Dikhta Hai Wo Bikta Hai means, right? What you see is that what sells. Okay, what you see is that what sells. Okay, so basically, whatever, like, I mean, if your product or if anything, whatever you are selling isn't looking good, it won't be sold properly. Okay, a lot of people would know about it, right? So what do you think we will be? What do you think we will be studying in today's session? Can you guess? Can you guess what we will be studying in today's session? Exactly. The whole chat is filled with tailwind. Yes. So basically, see why this name and why I came up with this this session. Will be talking about how to make your apps look good. How do you make your web app looks good? Basically by writing CSS. So in this session today, we will be covering a lot of things about how to write CSS in your web projects. Okay? Yes, the session is recording. Don't worry about that. It is recording. It is recording. I have started the recording. So, right. And I'll tell you that what we are going to study today, right? So basically, I was thinking about building things up. There are lots of tutorials over how to write CSS, how to write style components, how to write Bootstrap, Material UI. But in this course, in this live course, we will be covering the most popular CSS framework that is trending these days, which is Tailwind CSS. Okay, I will be using Tailwind CSS for this course. Okay, does that make sense? Does that make sense? A lot of people asked me that, Akshay, we want to learn Tailwind. Okay, I was doing a survey before I started this Namaste React. So I was doing a survey of what should I include, right? I can't teach everything. So I chose Tailwind CSS. But let me tell you, I have never used Tailwind CSS on production in any of my companies. Okay. So in any of my companies, I have never used Tailwind CSS on production. It is a new trending thing in market. It's a new CSS framework. A lot of companies, a lot of companies in the industry use Bootstrap. Some companies use Material UI. When I was in Uber, we used to have a CSS framework which was known as Base UI. Have you anybody heard of Base UI, Base Web? No. Okay. So Uber basically has had its own CSS framework. So it was known as Base UI. Okay. So you can search for it. Let me just give me a moment. Let me have my browser also. So basically, so Uber had something known as Base UI. So this was built by Uber and maintained by Uber. It was kind of like a alternative to Material UI or something, right? So I have a nice question over here by Abhishek. Why should we learn CSS or frameworks, right? Should we do native CSS or should we have frameworks? So I think people should give me the answer for this over here. Should we use frameworks? Yes or no? What is the yes or no? Yes, everybody agrees that, okay, we should be using frameworks, but why? What is there in frameworks that we can't do it normally?
We can also do, but it
why?
Lots of time, makes our life easy.
Why? Exactly. The primary reason for choosing framework is to write optimized CSS. First thing is optimize CSS. The second thing is it saves time, right? The second thing is it saves time, right? It is faster development when we use CSS, right? CSS frameworks and these libraries. Okay, so this is what the reason is why we use it. Today, again, let me repeat, today we are going to cover Tailwind CSS. But before that, right, I want to tell you, I don't just want to focus upon Tailwind CSS. I want to cover the overall perspective of how you can style your React components. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Awesome. So what we are going to do is, so one way of writing CSS is that we have already seen. What is that way? What is that way? Yes, the basic native CSS file. So what we used to do is we had a index.html file, right? Which had this index.css inside it, right? This is one way of putting CSS into your app. And what we did is, no matter what the component is, we were styling everything in this one large index.css file, right? We were doing it in one large index.css file. This is a very basic way of writing CSS, right? We normally write HTML CSS like this, isn't it? So I did not want it to complicate things over here. So I chose to write it like this. But in this session today, I'll tell you various ways you can write CSS. Various ways you can write CSS. Now, some people, the next way of writing, this is one way of writing CSS. Let me tell you the second way of writing CSS. You can, instead of CSS, you can write SCSS. Do you know what is SCSS and SASS? Awesome. A lot of people know it. People who don't know it, just please read about it. There is something known as SCSS, right? If I keep on explaining all this, it will be a Namaste CSS session. It is too much, right? So basically, you know, if we write the basic CSS, there are so many things, right? Which takes tedious amount of CSS, right? So SCSS and SAS makes the CSS writing experience good, right? How does SCSS help? What is the advantage of using SCSS over normal CSS? Tell me.
Object oriented CSS, right?
Yep,
Which was
exactly.
also
Some people are saying nesting, mixins, reusability, variables. Exactly. So it is like uh it when we write SCSS, right? It gives superpower to is our CSS. It is a modern way of writing CSS. So basically, SCSS is a different way of writing CSS, and then later, at the end of the day, what is SCSS compiled to?
CSS.
At the end of the day, what is SCSS compiled to? At the end of the day, that SCSS is converted to your CSS. Okay, it is converted to your basic CSS, and that is what is shipped. So assume that, okay, I'll tell you one more example, right? Just like we have JSX, right? Just like we have JSX, what it is at the end of the day, when it goes to the browser, what it is at the end of the day, it is it is JavaScript, right? At the end of the day, it is JavaScript, which is later on transformed into HTML, right? It is JavaScript objects, but later on the browser takes it up as HTML, right? So, and in fact, so those are HTML tags at the end of the day, right? So similarly, SCSS is also compiled to CSS. So it basically converts everything into CSS. That is another way. The first way is to use normal CSS file. Second way is to use SCSS or SAS, right? And what is the third way? How else can I put CSS? How else can I put CSS? Tell me. Awesome. I'll tell you. Some people said inline. What do you mean by inline? What do you mean by inline? Inline means, what do you mean by inline CSS? Yup. So inline means I am putting CSS over here itself. Okay. So I'll tell you, suppose if I am creating this input button, right? Suppose if I am creating this input box, what is this? This is search input. First of all, let me start my project. npm start. So we have started our project. Here is it, right? So we have this search button, right? We have this search button. Okay. So if I want to, or let's have this button, right? This is the search button, right? This search button is this. Okay. This is the search button. So if I have to put in CSS for this search button, how did we do it? First way is to give it a class and go to the index.css and give it some CSS, right? Where is it? Did we write any CSS? I can do something like this, right? Search button, right? I can give it some CSS like this, isn't it? Right? How we can give it? Like, let's give it background color as green. Okay, so it turned green. This is one way of writing CSS. What is another way of writing CSS is we can do this. We can do this directly over here. We can do this inline. So now we don't have to worry. We don't even have to write this class now, right? We don't. So basically it is a tedious process, right? We have to write class. Then we have to move to our CSS file. Then we have to see it's a complicated process, right? When we write CSS, we have to give a class name here, which should be unique, and then come back to CSS and then write some CSS and then go back and see whether like it's painful, isn't it? It is painful, right? So like toggling into different files once again, first moving on to JS file, then moving on to CSS. So it's a very tedious process, but that's a very basic process, right? So instead of doing this, right, what we can do is we can put in inline CSS. We can put in inline CSS. How do I put in inline CSS? We write it like this: style. What does this style takes? What does this style takes? It takes a JavaScript object. It takes a object, JavaScript. How do I write JavaScript in my code? How do I write JavaScript in my JSX? Within curly braces. So basically, I'll have to write my JavaScript object inside this, right? So basically, I'll tell you how, right? So basically, if I have to write, I can do something like this, okay? Search button CSS is equals to a JavaScript object. What I want to do, I can write my background color as red. Okay. Suppose if I want to apply this CSS to my button, right? I can create this object and I can just pass in like this. Will this work? Will this work? Yes or no? Let us just see. Right? Let us just see. See, our button turned red, isn't it? Our button turned red. Some people also like to write it in a different fashion. How? They don't create a variable name, right? What we did is we created a variable name here, right? Search button CSS. Let me remove this. Let me close this terminal. Okay. So background color as red. Now what I can do is I could have directly passed in this object over there. Instead of creating this, the other way is I can directly write in. So if you ever see this syntax, don't panic. Some people think that what are you doing over here, Akshay? What is this? What are you doing over here, Akshay? So basically it is like passing in object, JavaScript object inside my curly braces. Okay. So don't worry if you ever see this type of code. It just means that there is a JavaScript object which I am passing it inside this style. And why am I writing two curly braces? Do you have do you have the answer for it? You have the answer for it, right? A lot of people don't know. They just feel that, okay, style is written like this. Okay. This is how you write it, right? This is how you write it. It is like we are passing in the JavaScript object inside a JSX, which is a JavaScript which needs a curly braces to it. Awesome. Cool. So this is a faster way of writing CSS, isn't it? Right? Suppose if I am writing a button, right? I can directly write style and I can give a background red. Instead of creating, other way was to create a class name, then go back to our CSS file, then write CSS for it over here, come back, see. This is a faster process, isn't it? This is a faster process. Right? But is this a good way of writing CSS? But is this a good way of writing CSS? Exactly. A lot of people say that this is not a good way of writing CSS. But why? Why it is not a good way of writing CSS? Why? Exactly. One answer is reusability. What else? What else? Repetition. Okay. Hard coded. Exactly. You're everybody is right over here. Yep. Yes. So basically it is difficult to maintain. It is not a good style of writing code, right? It is difficult to maintain. We can't reuse these classes, right? Suppose if I have created a CSS class dot bgred, right? Which makes the background color as red. And if I want to make the background color red for a lot of places, right? If I have to make background color red for this input box or for this restaurant inside somewhere, right? So I can't reuse it, right? It is difficult to maintain because I am hard coding it. right? Tomorrow I want to change my background color over here. It would be very tough to go back, find out where I wrote the code, and there are lots of cons of it. And it is a heavy job. It is a heavy job for our browsers, right? This is one more thing. The job of processing the inline CSS is heavy for the browsers to understand. Does that make sense? Yes or no? Awesome. So this is not a good way of writing CSS, and always try to avoid writing CSS like this. Always try to avoid. In fact, writing CSS in a CSS file and adding a class name is a better way of writing CSS than writing inline styles. Does that make sense? Right? Cool if that makes sense. Right? Cool if that makes sense. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So this was the third way. What was the first way? First way is to have a file, CSS file. Second way is SCSS or SAS. The third way is inline styling, right? Let's move on to the fourth way of writing CSS or styling our components. How can we do that? How can we do that? The fourth way is to use libraries like Material UI. Have you used Material UI? Do you know what is Material UI? Do you know what is Material UI? Yeah. So you know what happened? Whenever we are building web apps, right? Whenever we are building web apps, so we have common things in our page. We always have a button. We always have a nav bar. We always have some cards. We always have some list, menus, switches, kind of like these buttons, right? Kind of like a calendar. So many things are there, right? So what these libraries did was, right? Okay, who maintains Material UI?
Google.
Who maintains Material UI?
Google.
Who maintains Material UI?
Google.
This is your homework. Find it out. Who maintains Material UI? Okay. Okay. So a lot of people are writing it down as well, right? Anyways, so basically what happened was this Material UI was built. Material UI is a library, right? It is a fully loaded component library. When I say library, it means that it has a lot of pre-built components. See, if you go over here, it has a lot of pre-built components which are already styled. So if suppose I want to use a rating, right? I want to use star rating inside my app. So what I have to do is I'll just copy paste this. I'll just copy paste this code and it will give me this component, right? So this is a newer and faster ways of building UI. Does that make sense? So a lot of companies heavily rely on libraries to build their UI, right? So a lot of companies use Material UI, just like Material UI in Uber, we used to have a library, a framework, which was base UI. So it also had its own components, right? There is something known as Ant design. Yes, Tithi says she uses Ant, right? Right? So there is something known as Ant. I have not used Ant anytime, right? Ant UI. This Ant design, right? I think this is maintained by Airbnb or someone, right? No. Is it who maintains this? I don't know about this. Okay. Airbnb, right? I guess I'm not sure about it. Made with love by Ant. Okay. So it's a different Ant design community, I guess. Okay. Yep. So basically, similarly, these libraries and frameworks. Now, the question is, should we use these libraries and framework? Yes or no? Is it a good practice to use this libraries and framework? Yes, yes, no, no. So let us just discuss what are pros and cons of using these libraries and framework. What are pros of using a library? What are pros? What are pros? Easy to use, exactly, reusable, exactly. You don't have to write much about CSS. As a front-end engineer, a lot of people should not focus upon how my buttons are looking, but they should be focusing upon making the buttons reusable, isn't it? As a front-end developer, I want to write logical things more than customizing how the button looks like, right? Like suppose the button should have rounded corners, right? Writing CSS for all these small things is a pain in itself, right? It saves a lot of time. It saves a lot of time. It gives us automatic theming, right? It gives us what? What are other uses? Why do we use libraries, right? Why do we use something like Material UI? Because it gives us built-in components, right? It gives us consistent UI. All these things you have to tell. When you are going in your system design round of interview, you always have to discuss that what will you use for styling your components. There are different ways you can style your web apps. What way will you choose? And you will have to give a good reason for it. That is why I am telling you you should know what are the pros and cons of using a library. The pro of using a library is we get a consistent UI, right? All the buttons in my app will look the same now, right? If I go to my component, if I always use this button, so all my buttons will look something like this, right? All my buttons will look like this, right? So, and this consistency is really required. Suppose if somewhere the buttons become square, right? And somewhere these have rounded corners. So there should be consistency when you are on a website. Recently, YouTube did a change. Did you see that? YouTube made a major change in their UI. What change did they make? What change did they make? Right? What change did they make? They turned all their buttons to rounded corners. All their buttons to rounded corners. Earlier, this subscribe button used to be different, isn't it? This subscribe button used to be different, right? How it used to look? It used to be red color and it was a square. Rectangle, right? Red color and a rectangle, isn't it? And a lot of, if you will write on Google, right? Subscribe button. So it was like this since a long time. It used to be like this. See, it used to be like this, I guess. It used to be like this. So for a long time, it was like this. Now they have recently changed it to rounded. Right? So because to have consistency, we use like this. So suppose, okay, now YouTube, okay, so this YouTube is using this button, right? Suppose if there are thousands of buttons inside this YouTube app, right? There would be thousands of buttons inside this YouTube source code, isn't it? Right? If they had not used the library, if they have not used the library, what would have happened? What would have happened? It would have been a pain to modify all the buttons, right? It would be a pain to modify all these buttons. So using a library gives us a consistency when we are using, right? When we are using CSS, right? So this is Material UI. right? So it gives us its, and every, now I'll tell you, okay, what is better, material UI or base UI or and design? What is better among the three? What is better among the three? And MUI and
ভালো লাগছে না
MUI and
ভালো লাগছে
MUI.
না
Okay. People have different base UI. Okay. Fluent UI. So basically, none of them is better or none of them is worse. Every library, every
চলেই গেছে
component styling guide or a CSS or a framework of UI, it depends on how you, as a developer of the project, want to use, right? Everything that you can do with material, you can do the same with ant UI also. There is here and there a little bit of difference between these frameworks and libraries. Otherwise, most of them gives you all the pre-built components. Suppose if you had to use a slider, right? Slider like this in your app, right? Slider like this, you will get you will get the same inside ant UI as well. You would have a slider or something over here as well. See, the ant UI also have a slider. See, it is just about what you want to use, right? Some companies prefer to use ant, some companies prefer to use material, some companies build their own UI system. Some companies build their own UI frameworks. Now there is a great question Satyabrata asked, can I use two CSS framework in one project? What do you think the answer is? What do you think the answer will be? Can you use two? Yes, no, yes, no. We see, we can use, see, what are these, what are these libraries at the end of the day? What are these libraries at the end of the day? What are they?
normal days where ultimately
Right? What are they? Where is material UI? Okay. What are they at the end of the day?
normal days is the
See, what are they at the end of the day? What are they at the end of the day? Now, can you answer this?
get functions
It is a normal package, right? Can you use multiple packages in your project? Can you use multiple project? So then why can't you use both? You can use material UI, you can use bootstrap, you can use tailwind, you can use ant, everything you can use together. But should we use it? Should we use it? No, we should not use it. That is, it just doesn't make sense, right? You don't want one of your button to look something like that, right? Other way, the one button would look something else. So you need to be consistent when you are building your UI, right? So that is why it's not a good practice to use multiple frameworks, right? Though you can use it, but it's not a good practice to use it. We should have uniformity when it comes to design. Whenever I go to YouTube, I exactly have mapped in my mind how the button looks like. Because YouTube changed it to round corners, I was able to notice this. Why? Because I have been seeing the same button since years now. So it is stick into my head. It is stuck into my head. So every website has its own vibe. That vibe is created by styling, and it is very important. It is very important, right? So and if you'll see, right, so a lot of companies focus upon design a lot,
আমি একটা বল করে
lot.
একটা গোল বল
Because why? Why do a lot of companies focus upon design? Exactly, Harshit has
আজকে এখন কেন লগ ইন করছিল ওকে ভাই
বলো বলো
চলো
আমি লাগিয়ে দিচ্ছি তুমি চলো।
I'm telling you, this class I am taking, right, to teach you the basics of how you can style it in different ways. But I would encourage you to go learn CSS on your own, right? Right? And I am nowhere close to building Namaste CSS anytime soon. I am really bad at CSS, to be very honest. I'm telling you, I'm very bad at CSS. I actually don't enjoy writing CSS much. I do the, honestly, I'm telling you, I just do it because I have to do it, right? But yeah, I mean, जो दिखता है वो बिकता है. So you can't avoid CSS at the end of the day, right? I can just save a lot of my time by using other libraries and framework, which saves a lot of time for me. Next. So now what we have seen is first way of writing CSS was to have a CSS file. The second way could be to write SCSS. The third way was to write inline. The fourth way, we can use these libraries. These libraries, right, like Material UI, Ant Design, Base UI. You can use libraries like this. Now, right, and most of the companies use this. Okay, most of these companies use this. Everybody, a lot of people are saying Chakra UI, right? Chakra, yes. There is something known as Chakra also. Chakra UI. It is one more alternative. So write down all of them. Do you know about Chakra? Do you know about Chakra? Yes or no? Do you know about Chakra? No. So just see this Chakra UI, right? Just see this Chakra UI. This is one more library, right? Go ahead, see all these libraries, take it down as your assignment. You have to go see all of them and then figure out a good one for you, right? Figure out a good one for you. Now, let us come to the cons of using these frameworks and Material UI, right? Or anyone. What are cons of using them? What are cons of using these libraries? What are cons of it? Yep. One good thing is bundle size, right? Bundle size. Do you agree to it? It makes our bundle size heavy. Other thing is we lose a lot of control. We lose a lot of control over how my design looks. Do you agree to this? Right? We lose a lot of control because now when I am using Material UI, I am kind of forced to use my buttons like this, right? So if I am using Material UI, so I have to make my buttons look like this, right? A personal customization becomes hard. Though the development process becomes very easy and fast, right? Very easy and fast, but to customize it takes a lot of time. And you know, I have seen this happening a lot of times. I have seen this happening a lot of times in the industry. Let me tell you that what pain I had to go through when I was using one of these in my production apps when I was working in a company, right? So, you know, lot of these, if you go to calendar, right? Do they have a calendar component? Date component? Date? Date time picker. So see this date time picker. See this date time picker. What product requirement did I get is we don't want a date time picker like this. So if you will go and check the date time picker of all of them, right? They will have a different way of handling it. Where is date? Yes, this is the date picker here. Right? See, everybody have a different way. Right? See, so what happens is it becomes sometimes pain. Same situation you have faced. Okay, exactly, right? So what I'm trying to say is I was there in a company and I was using a library, right? The design team, you know, generally how things work in a company is there is a separate design team, a UI design team, right? So they give you a requirement to build a UI in a specific way, but then you have to apply a lot of customization over these components. It is bad. It becomes very, so people who are working in the industry would know that, right? Would know the pain. Do you? Have you faced such issues where your design team would have said, okay, I want this button to have rounded corners or something, and then because you were using material UI, you cannot change it now. It would have become tough, right? So these things, these requirements are painful. And I remember I was using material UI, and it used to have a very bad experience over smaller phones. In small phones, right? In small phones, it used to have a, what used to happen if I see, let me refresh the page. Whenever you start typing, this label goes up, right? Material UI is like that. The label goes up when you start writing. I'm not sure how to show it to you. There is no empty date, right? So if you don't have a date inside it, the label stays down. Okay, I'll show you, right? Just give me a moment. Where is input box? Input. Yes, so input, button, rating, select. Yep, so it looks like this. And when you click on this, see, it goes up, right? This floating text. So if you are like this, in the date time picker also, there was the same behavior. And this behavior does not work well in a lot of devices. This does not work well in like older phones. If you'll go to older phones, right? I have faced these. I'm telling you this pain, right? This pain I have faced as a developer in my company when I was writing CSS. And a lot of people who are using Material UI would know this. It does not work on all these devices, right? So, and then we mess up head and then we like pull our hairs, right? Because see, this is a fancy thing that Material UI gives us, right? This age will go up. See this, when I hover it, it goes up. But this does not work really well in all the devices. So even in the date picker, it was the same issue. So what happens is, so like giving you the summary of why I'm telling you all this is, whenever you are using a particular framework or a library, it restricts you in some way. Does that make sense to you? It restricts you in some way. So this is a major con of using a library or framework. But a big pro or big advantage of using a library and framework. It makes the development very fast, right? And you can build a lot of stuff very fast, and it is easy, right? It is easy to code because you don't have to now think about how my button should look. Should it have a rounded corner? Suppose if 10 developers are working on the same project, 10 developers are working on same project, right? It is very common that, okay, I will make the buttons like this. The other developer will also write the same code. So that is why it becomes good when a lot of developers are working on the same project. So it keeps everything consistent. Okay, it keeps everything consistent. Other thing is, it takes care of a lot of things. It takes care of your responsiveness, isn't it? Right? It takes care of your responsiveness. So basically, when I say responsiveness, this component might look different in the website, right, on the browser of your laptop, and this might look different in your mobile phone. So everything is customizable. Got it. Okay. So this is the pros and cons of using. This was another way of writing, styling the components inside your React applications or web application. What all things did we study? Let us revise it once again. What was the first thing? What was the first thing? Come on in the chat. Normal CSS, right? Normal CSS file. This native CSS. Second thing. What was the second thing? Okay. So first was normal native CSS. What was the second thing? SCSS. SASS. Read about it if you don't know about it. Right? What is SCSS, SAS, and SCSS? What is the third thing? What is the third thing? Inline CSS. Right? Where we have a JavaScript object. What is the fourth thing? Libraries like this. Libraries. Oh, and we also call them as component libraries. Okay? Component libraries or UI libraries. Fancy names for it. But it means material design or material UI, base UI, and chakra. Note all of them down. Explore all of them. Now, these are few ways. Now, let us come to the latest and that we will use in this live course, which is trending these days. It is the Tailwind CSS. Tailwind CSS framework. Okay. Let us now see what is Tailwind CSS. Okay. So before moving on to Tailwind CSS, I want you all as a senior engineer to know the pros and cons of using any of these, all of this. Okay. So as a senior engineer, when you are giving and going for the interviews, you should exactly know what are the pros of using SCSS, CSS, why should we write inline CSS and why should we not write inline CSS, what is the use of component libraries and what is not use of component libraries, right? So you should know the pros and cons of all of these styles. Got it? Got it? This is an important thing in your interviews. You don't have to skip this. It is very, 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 very important. Okay? Cool. So now let us just see what is Tailwind CSS, why do we use it, when do we use it, how do we use it, and what are pros and cons of writing Tailwind CSS, right? So I'll be diving deep inside Tailwind CSS. I just wanted to give a brief idea about overall styling of React applications, React components, and then I'll show you the Tailwind CSS. Okay, but one more thing, wait. There is one more way you can style your CSS that is known as styled components. Sorry, I forgot to tell you this. Before Tailwind CSS, there is one more way. There is something known as styled components. This is also a very important, this is also majorly used in React projects. This is also majorly used in React projects. I'll tell you how and what. Before Tailwind CSS, I forgot. This is one more way. Okay. Styled components. This is a very popular way. Anybody over here who use Tailwind CSS, styled components in their projects? Do you use styled components? Okay, I use. There are people who are saying, yes, I use. Okay. Yes. Okay. So basically, styled components is again, so in some of the projects inside Uber, we had something known as styled components. See, why I'm telling you all that is, suppose if you go in a company, there could be, every company have their own ways of writing CSS and styling their components. I'm telling you all the ways which I have seen in the industry so that you are at least aware of things. When you go in an interview, you are not blank if you hear all these terms. You should know all of them. You should know basics of all of these, right? What is happening behind the scenes. So there is known as style components. Now let me tell you the idea behind style components. When we code in React, what do we do? Where do we write our HTML type of code? HTML-like code? It is JSX, right? So basically what did we do is we bring in You know, earlier when we used to make websites, like long back, when we in the older times we used to, how do we used to make websites? We had separate files for HTML, separate file for a JavaScript, separate file for CSS, right? What we did with JSX is, we are now writing HTML like code inside our JS. We kind of brought in our HTML inside JS, right? So there was an army of developers, there was a community of developer which said that, okay, let us bring CSS on through. CSS also inside our JavaScript. We have brought in HTML inside our JavaScript. Let us bring CSS also in our JavaScript files. Does that make sense? Right? So that is why styled components came in. So suppose if you have to make a button, right? So you can do something like this. Read this code. Is it readable? So instead of writing a button tag, we can create a button like this. You know, this is a button component. This is a styled button component. Okay. So if you have to give this, right? So you can write it something like this. I am not diving deep into going it, right? I am not diving deep into how do you write it. If you are curious, go ahead and read about it. It is good to know the philosophy and why people use it like this. But this is how we used to write style components. Okay. So basically you kind of pass in this CSS, right, as props. Okay. It is like writing CSS inside your JavaScript. Okay. What is the pain of it? What is the pain, the biggest pain of using style components, which I personally like as a biggest pain? I have written style components in production, by the way. I have written this code into production. Why? What is? Some people are saying reusability. No. So suppose if you have styled the button component once, you can use it any much time as reusability is there. It is reusable. Why? One big thing about style components, it comes with a learning curve and a learning style. It is a very strong writing style. Okay. If you write your components like this, you have to think in a certain different way. Okay. It's a different way of writing code. If there is a new developer coming in, you have to like tell them that this is how it is. It is easier to pick up, but then it is less used in the industry. Okay. And I don't like the idea of having writing styles like this. I don't like to write styles like this. I just don't like CSS to be written like this. No. I don't know. Like it's just not, it looks less verbose to me, right? I don't know. It looks less readable. It's a personal reason. I don't know much about what you people think. What do you think, by the way? Do you find this style of writing code good? Writing CSS good? Yes or no? Okay. Some people say is good. Some people say is no. Some people say is good. Okay. It's a personal choice. I really did not like it much, right? So, but there are people who do this, right? So if suppose you are writing your CSS, right? And it is used in a lot of see Coinbase uses it, Vogue uses it, right? There are a lot of big companies who are using it, right? InVision uses this, right? So it is used a lot, but then I just wanted to tell you, if you wish to read more about it, go ahead and read about it. It's another way of writing CSS. So what all did we studied? We saw how to write normal native CSS. The other way is SCSS. The other way is inline CSS. Other way is to use component libraries, right? Material UI, base UI, and Chakra. Other way is styled components, right? Styled components. And the one that we are going to study now, and the main one, is Tailwind CSS. Right? Now let us just start with seeing why do we use Tailwind CSS? How do we use Tailwind CSS? How do we configure our project to use Tailwind CSS? And a lot of cool stuff that Tailwind CSS has to offer. But let me tell you that I have never used Tailwind CSS on production, but it is catching up so fast, right? I'll give you my views over Tailwind CSS towards the end. But for now, let us just learn with a empty mindset. Okay. Let us see how did we like Tailwind CSS. Okay. In the next 1 hour, or so, I will be diving deep into Tailwind CSS, and let us just see that do we like it or not like it. Okay. We will decide this at the end. Cool. We will decide this at the end, whether we will like it or not. Awesome. Okay. So some people are saying we are both learning together. Yes. So I have played with Tailwind CSS in my personal projects, never deployed it onto production ever. Not used. Are you using Tailwind on production? Anybody over here? Anyone over here who are using Tailwind on production? No. Okay. Some people are saying yes. Baljit is saying yes. Okay. Cool. So there are people who use Tailwind on production. There are a lot of companies who are also using Tailwind on production now. It is good for them, right? But let us make our decision after this class. Okay. So let's start with Tailwind CSS. Okay. Some people are saying break. Some people are saying break. Okay. Cool. So, okay, it is about to be 12. Let's take a 5 minutes break, and then in one go we will see Tailwind CSS. Okay. In one go we will see all Tailwind CSS. Let's take a 5 minutes break. Let's finish with the break. After that, we will cover everything about Tailwind CSS. Okay.
그래. 아니 너도 절로.
So let us just come back. Are you back? Are you people back? Okay, awesome. Let's just start. Just a minute. Right, so. Okay. Let me just close all these tabs for now. Okay. Now, let us just see about Tailwind CSS. Okay. Let us just see about Tailwind CSS. Some people are saying sabji le lo. Yes, yes.
어?
Yeah. Perks of working from home. Okay. So you don't have to go to the sabji mandi to get your vegetables. Right, you get it directly over here at my house. Perks to live in a small city, I guess, right? I am from Dehradun, so over here we have vegetable vendors coming in over here, right? Cool. Let's not divert. Let's now see what is Tailwind and what is Tailwind CSS framework, right? Uh, but a lot of people were writing Bootstrap in the comments. So Bootstrap is again another way of writing CSS, right? So Bootstrap is a way, go explore it up. A lot of companies use Bootstrap as well. It is again a library, right? So it comes with its own style guide, right? How you write code in Bootstrap, right? So just go and read more about it as well. Now let us just move on to studying Tailwind. Okay. So now Tailwind CSS is a it says that it is an open source CSS framework, right? So it is an open source CSS framework. Why Tailwind is used and how Tailwind is used? So Tailwind comes with a mix of things, right? Tailwind comes with a mix of things. Okay. So what mix of things? Right. Okay. So what was the major pros and cons of what was the major pro of writing inline CSS? What was good about writing inline CSS? What was good about writing inline CSS? Can you tell me?
Bundle size.
It was saving time. Wow. So we were basically trying to write CSS on the go, right? On the go means in the same file. So we don't have to create a class name and then go to the CSS file, right? So how do we earlier used to do? We put a class name, search input. Now we will go to our CSS file and then we will write it up, right? Write CSS for it. So inline CSS made it faster. So Tailwind gives us this feature. You don't have to toggle between your CSS class and CSS file and then HTML file, CSS file. People who write like that, you would know, right? It's a pain to go to CSS file, write some CSS, go back to browser, go back to HTML, write a class name, come back, this, that, this, that, this, that, this, that. It's a big pain. So Tailwind CSS says that you can write CSS on the go, right? On the go, in the same file. In the same file, you can write your HTML and CSS, right? Then Tailwind CSS also have one more perks, that is reusability. reusability. Okay. So Tailwind CSS comes with a lot of pre-built classes. You know, Tailwind CSS comes with a lot of pre-built classes, right? That you can automatically use. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, Akshay, what are these classes? Lot of questions would be coming to your mind. Don't worry. When we will write Tailwind CSS, you would understand what's going on. Okay. Other thing is reusability. Important thing. Less bundle size. Less bundle size. Okay. It is not a very full-fledged framework where you have a lot of components pre-built, you build in, take up components. No. Tailwind CSS has lesser bundle file, lesser bundle size, as it is minimal CSS that it offers to us, right? Minimal CSS that it offers to us. We can style it up, right? It is very flexible. Flexible UI. You can build flexible UI. What do you mean by flexible UI? What do you mean by when I say we can build a flexible UI with it? It is very much customizable. We can customize it however I want to, which was a major con of these material UI, base UI. Suppose if I have material UI, right? So my buttons will look exactly how they offer to us, right? So this gives us a lot of control over our customizations. We can do a lot of customizations. So now let us just go ahead and see how can we configure Tailwind CSS for our project. Okay, let us just go and see. First thing, let me tell you, Tailwind CSS's website, it has one of the best documentations. You know, whenever I find a documentation really good, I always tell you, isn't it? I always tell you, Tailwind CSS has a very nice documentation. Very, very nice documentation. Okay, so when you will have to come back over here again and again, right? Initially, when you are writing Tailwind CSS, but it has a very nice documentation. I personally love it. You know, I never had to struggle to find anything. How do we do it in Tailwind CSS? This is the absolute source of truth. Really amazed by the documentation. First impression is really great about Tailwind CSS. Now let us just explore Tailwind CSS. How we can inject Tailwind CSS into our project. How can we inject Tailwind CSS? One way is to put in Tailwind CSS onto our project is to use CDN links. Okay, we can use CDN links. I can just, what it is at the end of the day, everything, all these libraries, CSS libraries, frameworks at the end of the day are packages, right? Are normal packages. Okay. So similarly, Tailwind CSS is also a package. You can just load it like this into your app. You can just go to your index.html and you can just put in like this. And we can start using Tailwind CSS now. We can start using Tailwind CSS. That's all we need to do. Okay. So what I want to say you is that Tailwind CSS is not just React thing. It works with all the frameworks. It is library framework agnostic. It works with your normal index, normal HTML, CSS also, normal HTML, JavaScript also. It is that simple. I can start using Tailwind CSS. Let us just try to write, right? Let us write a h1 tag. Let's not give it any class for now. Okay. Let us write a h1 tag into our code. Let's go back. Did we see? We saw this hello world, isn't it? We saw this hello world, isn't it? I'll tell you one more thing. Okay. Suppose let me remove this Tailwind CSS for now. I have removed this Tailwind CSS. Okay. I am removing this Tailwind CSS. So see, H1 looks like this, right? This is a H1 tag. This is a normal H1 tag. This is a normal H1 tag. Okay. Let me just include my Tailwind CSS into my project. Now you go back, see what happened to my H1 tag. What happened to my H1 tag? What happened to my H1 tag? H1 tag is gone. So what happens is when you start using Tailwind CSS, it changes the default behavior of a lot of things, lot of tags, how they used to work normally, right? Normally, see everything distorted, isn't it? Everything went up, down. There are no blue links. See that there is a difference. If suppose, let me comment it down once again, right? I commented down. See, there are links. These are looking blue color link icons. Notice the difference, right? A hello world is written in H1 tag. We know it is bigger, bolder, right? Big and bold. But as soon as I included my Tailwind CSS, it removed all the basic CSS which our normal tags used to offer us, isn't it? How? So Tailwind CSS says that whenever you are writing any CSS, write it in my way, how I tell you to write. Write it in my way, how I tell you to write. I will override everything. So basically, Tailwind says that I am the beast now. Nothing will work by default. You have to write it in Tailwind style. You have to write it in Tailwind style. Tailwind is now into picture. Okay? It won't let the normal behavior work how it used to. Links by default, whenever we create an anchor tag, it makes our link as underline and blue color, isn't it? Right? Underline and blue color. Tailwind says no more blue colors, no more links. It removes all the CSS. Default CSS is removed now. It also removed our cursor pointer. It also removes everything, right? Oh, cursor pointer is there. For some reason, cursor pointer is still there, right? But it removes the CSS for all these tags, right? The default behavior of your H1 tag, okay? Because that we explicitly mentioned, right? This cursor pointer we would have explicitly mentioned. That's why it is happening like this. See what happened to our input box. See what happened to our input box. It is not even visible now. It is not even visible now. See what happened to our button. Our button lost all our buttons looks. Everything is gone, right? So what I want to say is Tailwind CSS is kind of like a bully which overrides everything. It's kind of like a beast and it says that, okay, you have to write code in my way. You have to write code in my way. I'll tell you why it does that. There is a reason for it. Okay, cool. Let us just start by writing Tailwind CSS. Okay, how easy was it to install? It was very easy. I can just have my package over here. Cool. Now, my H1 tag should be a little bold and should be a little long, right? So Tailwind CSS says that, okay, you want to make this hello world as bold and a little longer, taller, right? Just like H1. How do you do it is Tailwind CSS works just with the class names. Every CSS style that you will put in will be a new class name. Does that make sense? I'll tell you how. Everything, every style that you will write will be a new class name inside Tailwind CSS. Now, see, I know how to write it down. I'll tell you, okay? So if I have to write a class, so I'll give a class. So why I'm giving class, not class name? Why I'm giving class and not class name over here? Why? I am in my HTML file, okay? Okay, cool. Cool.
I'm trying to do the class.
Okay, so I am in my HTML file. Now, suppose if I want to make this hello world as bold, if I want to make hello world as bold, how do I make it bold? I'll just write font bold here. I'll just write font bold here. Okay. And let me save it up. See, it turned bold. This is how you make text bold inside Tailwind CSS. Okay. Does that make sense? Yes. Now, if I want to increase the size of it, if I want to increase the size of it, what it will be at the end of the day? What it will be at the end of the day? I can do it like text hyphen XL. It will make the text extra large. Okay. It is like your t-shirt size. Okay. It is like your t-shirt size. It made your text extra large. Okay. Now let us just have one more. Okay. Let's play with it. Let me have one more heading. Let's call this as Hello World 2. Right? If I want to make it more big, okay? What if I want to make more big? I can do something like text to XL. I can do text to XL, not double XL. This is how you write it in Tailwind CSS. Okay. So it became 2XL. Okay. Bharat says, "Bhai maro mujhe maro." Okay. Now, suppose if I want to make it more large, how do you do that? How do you do that? I can write it 3XL. So if I write it 3XL, it became more big. Okay. Okay. What if I write 4XL? Will this work? If I write 4XL? If I write 4XL? So, can I write 100XL? Can I write 100XL? Will this work? Let us just see. It did not work. Now you would say that, Akshay, are you mad? Like, how at the end of the day I would know what to write, right? Exactly. Do you have the same question that how would I remember? Is it 2XL, 3XL? Can I write 10XL? Can I write 20XL? Can I write 40XL? Right? Right? Suppose if you want to make it even more small, so there is something known as text SM. This means text small. Okay. If I write text small, see, it is smaller. Right? I can write text LG, text large. I can write text MD. What is text MD? It's like text medium. So basically, what I am trying to tell is everything in Tailwind works with class names. Everything in Tailwind works with class name. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, you would ask me, Akshay, how would I get to know that what can I write? How can I write these class names? Isn't it? How can I write these class names? How would you find that? How would you find that? In your documentation. Very easy, isn't it? So always go ahead. Suppose if I want to make the text colors as red, right? So how would I find it? How would I find it? Right? Suppose if I wanted to make things bold, right? So what can I do? See, Tailwind's website offers a great feature of this search, and its search is really very great. I'm telling you, trust me, this search is really very great, right? So you would, when you are learning Tailwind CSS, it would be very handy for you. It uses Elasticsearch at the end of the day behind the scenes, but it is really very good, right? This Tailwind CSS, it is powered by this Algolia. right? I'm just telling you random stuff. You don't need to know about it, how they are searching it, but its search is very good. So you can have a shortcut command and K. So you have a shortcut command K. Okay, you can search anything. Suppose if I wanted to make things bold, right? So what I can do, bold. I write bold over here. So it will tell me what can I use? What class name can I use? I can use font light. I can use font normal. I can use font semi bold. I can use font bold. Okay. I can use font bold. Let me make it a little large so that everybody can read it. Okay. So this is how you find. So suppose if I want to give color, so how will I find? See, if I want to use this text decoration color, I'll just write it down color. Okay, color.
Yeah.
Let me go back.
Yes.
Right. So you can give it, these classes. Okay. You can give it these classes
The content in between, I got different other
to give the text decoration.
in my static part for the all the time.
Okay. Suppose if I want to change my text color, okay, how would I change? How would I change my text color? It says something like this. See,
It should be around 70.
read this.
I want to know.
What it is? Text green 600.
Correct. Yeah.
Text green 600. If you write text green 600, your color will look something like this.
It is.
Okay.
After the
Color will look something like this.
the manager and buy go for the buyout.
If you give it text green 900, it is a darker shade of green. I'll show it to you. Okay. Let me show it to you. If I write
You have the
text
right for me.
green 900,
No, nobody use
so it will make a dark green color. Oh, it is not the case. Just give me a moment.
Okay. They are my updated series there. Yeah. Thank you so
Text
much.
to Excel.
Yeah. Yes.
See, it is a dark green, right? It is a dark green. I did not save the file. Yes. So if I write text red 900, it makes the color red. If I make it text red 500, it makes the color a lighter shade of red. Okay. So what happened is, for every style you need to put in, there is a class name involved to it, right? I need to give a space over here. There is a class name involved to it, right? Every style you put in, there is a class name involved to it. Okay. Now, this is how you write things up, right? And this is how you search things up, right? This is how you do. Now, let us just move. Okay. Now, is it a good way to include Tailwind like this? Any library by far, right? Is it a good way? No. How do we use this? So we need to use it as a NPM package. Okay. Always use a NPM package for your projects. Let us just try to see how we can install Tailwind, and then we will see that how do we play with it more. Let's just first try to see the installation. So if you have to go to installation, let me tell you, okay, how do I find it out? Any library framework, go to get started, right? Go to this installation. Now, for installing in Parcel, go to framework guides, and there is a Parcel over here, right? Go to framework guides, there is Parcel over here. If you want to configure Tailwind inside Create React app, there is a different way. If you want to use Tailwind inside your Angular project, there is a different way. Okay. If you want to use it in Svelte, there's a different way. If you want to use it in Next.js, there is a different way. Okay. Are you there? I can't see the chat for some reason. Okay. Oh, you people are here. I don't know. Suddenly I was not seeing the chat. Cool. Okay. So I can go to Parcel. Let us just install it. How? So how do I install so it is just saying that how do you create a Parcel project? So we have a Parcel project already with us. We already have a Parcel project with us. So let us just directly install Tailwind. How do you install it? So basically, you will have to install Tailwind CSS as well as something known as Post CSS. What is Post CSS now? Let us install both first of all. Okay. So we will have to install our Tailwind CSS. We will also have to install something known as Post CSS. Okay. We will also have to install something known as Post CSS. What is Post CSS? What is Post CSS? Anybody? What is Post CSS? So this is installed as a dev dependency. Yes, you are right. So Post CSS. This is your homework. Read about Post CSS. So basically, Post CSS is a tool for transforming CSS with JavaScript. So basically, at the end of the day, it is used for compilation of these classes, right? Basically, we need to tell our parcel project that we are using Tailwind in our project. Okay. We need to tell our parcel that we are using Tailwind. So convert. Okay. So does the browser understand these classes? Text, XSS, text, Excel, text to Excel. No, browser does not understand this. Right? Tailwind understands this. So we need to tell parcel that, okay, there is Tailwind that we are using and it needs another compilation to convert those classes to be read by browser. Okay. So that is why we use Post CSS. I'll tell you how we use it. So we have installed our Tailwind CSS and Post CSS in our projects. Now, the second part, what you have to do is you have to do a Tailwind init. So you have to do a Tailwind init. So when we did this, what will happen is it will create a package. See, it installed to Post CSS and Tailwind CSS in the package.json. Now Tailwind and Post CSS are with us. Now let us just configure our project. Now we have to do some configurations. I'll tell you what. So those configurations are to init a Tailwind, right? There is something known as Tailwind CSS init. So this is like initializing our project to use Tailwind CSS. Now, this is an old question. Why do we use npm and why do we use npx? Remember that this is npx, not npm. If you don't know this, go back, see the older classes. We discussed about this. Okay. npx is to execute directly. npx is to execute it directly. Okay. Cool. So let us just do a init, right? I did npx tailwind init. Okay. So when you do npx tailwind init, see, this command created one config file for us. Automatically, this command created a tailwind.config.js for us. It gave us this config.js. So this is the place where we will do configurations. Now, take down as your homework for today, take down as your assignment. You have to find out what each of these mean. What do I mean by theme over here? What do I mean by plugin over here? This is your assignment. Okay. Does that make sense? Note it down as your assignment. Awesome. Okay. Now let us go back. So what we will do is, let me tell you the meaning of one of it. So in this content, we need to tell our project that what files will Tailwind be used in. What files will be using the Tailwind classes. Okay. What files will be using the Tailwind classes? What files will be using the Tailwind classes? Tell me. What files? All our component files, right? All our component files. So basically there is a way we can do that. So if you go back over here, it says that in the content, write this. So we will do this configuration like this. Okay. If I write content like this, this means that all the files which have .html at the end or .js at the end or .ts at the end or .jsx at the end or .tsx at the end, just read these files. When you are writing, when you are compiling, just use these files We won't be using Tailwind CSS in any other file except this. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Okay. So all the places where we will be using Tailwind classes. Cool. So in our project, we don't have TypeScript files. So we can just remove TSX and TS from here. We don't have JSX file. We can remove JSX as well, right? We just want to have HTML and JavaScript files. That should be used. Okay. That too inside my SRC folder. Cool. Let's move ahead. So there is something known as post CSS, right? So we need to configure our post CSS also. So how do we configure our post CSS? By a post CSS RC file. Okay. There is just like we have this Babel RC, right? Right? Remember this Babel RC file? Babel RC file, right? This is the configuration for Babel. Similarly, we have a configuration for our post CSS file. So post CSS RC file, right? Post CSS RC file. In this post CSS RC file, we need to configure this to tell our parcel, to tell our bundler that, okay, while you are bundling things up, while you are building a development or a production build, we will be using Tailwind. So compile our Tailwind. Okay. This is the reason we use this post CSS RC configuration. Does that make sense? Yes or no? Write cool in the chat. Write cool in the chat if that does make sense. Okay. Let me repeat it once again. So because some people are asking me to, so post CSS RC files take this configuration. It basically tells our bundler, it tells our parcel that, oh, in our project, we would be seeing a lot of Tailwind classes. So we need to configure it that when we are bundling things up, so compile that Tailwind CSS into normal CSS. Okay. Compile our Tailwind CSS into normal CSS. That is the job of post CSS. Okay. That is the job of post CSS. Now we have configured this, right? Now let me tell you one amazing thing. We have this CSS files. Now what we will do is in our index.css where we wrote all our CSS, right? We wrote a lot of CSS over here. When we use Tailwind, we will be writing nothing inside this CSS file. Nothing inside this CSS file. There will be no CSS inside this index.css. There will only be 3 lines inside this CSS files. 3 lines. Those 3 lines are these. Those 3 lines are these. When we are writing Tailwind CSS, we will be not writing any CSS inside our index.css file. We will be writing these 3 lines. What are these 3 lines doing? What are these 3 lines doing? This is the place where Tailwind exactly knows. See, there are, and why are these 3? Can you figure out by the names? This is the Tailwind base. This is the Tailwind base. All the classes which are there in base. This is the Tailwind for components. Okay. This is the Tailwind for utilities. Okay. And there is that @Tailwind, which tells that, okay, we need to include this. This is where the project is using Tailwind. So whenever the parcel or the bundler is reading our index.css, it exactly knows that, okay, @Tailwind, that means there is Tailwind, and it just figures out the classes, right? It's a way of Tailwind to work. So this is how you need to do. I know that while we are configuring this, I'm telling you right away that you might face some issues when you are configuring it. Sometimes what happens is, because there are certain, make sure that your versions are correct. You are on the latest version of Node. You are on the latest version of Tailwind. You are on the latest version of everything, parcel and all. Otherwise, it will give you some issues, right? So it takes 4-5 steps to configure it, but once you configure it, it works smooth. Okay. So what I am trying to say is the configuration takes few steps. Okay, when you are doing it. So okay, let's repeat the configuration process. It is not that hard either. First is to install the Tailwind, and the other package was what? Other package was what? Post CSS. Exactly. The second step is, what is the second step? To do a Tailwind init. To do a Tailwind init. What does Tailwind init creates? What does Tailwind init creates? A Tailwind config file. What do you do inside the Tailwind config file? What do you do inside the Tailwind config file? You basically tell Tailwind what files do you want to scan. Okay. What files do you want to scan? Where will the Tailwind classes will be there? Okay. So we will give the path of HTML, CSS. Now we have configured our Tailwind. Now we need to configure our post CSS, right? Then we create a post CSS RC. This post CSS RC has Tailwind. Okay. It says Tailwind. Done. What else we need to do? What else we need to do? We don't have to do anything now, right? We need to go to our, we need to go to our index.css file, and we need to give this 3 lines. And let me just close my CSS file, because from now on, my dear friends, from now on, I won't be touching my index.css file. It was such a pain to go to HTML file, write a class name, come back to our CSS file, write some CSS for it. I will no longer be doing that. I will no longer be doing that. I have closed my CSS file. I would need it ever now. I will not be writing anything in my CSS file now. Okay. Cool. So some people are saying, what is inside these index.css? These basically understand that this is the place where you can tell that, okay, you are using Tailwind and you will be using classes from its base, Tailwind's base library. So Tailwind also have different types of classes, right? Tailwind also have. So it has made it has distributed Tailwind into different chunks. So Tailwind also have different chunks, base, components, and utilities. So we have imported all of 3, right? Kind of like import inside CSS. Okay. Understand, it is like import inside CSS. That's all it is. Right? Cool. Cool. Does that make sense? Cool. Let's move ahead. Okay. So now our configuration is done. Now let us just go, and now we don't need this anymore, but let us just go and see if it is working or not. Let me just go start my app once again. npm start. NOM. I misspelled it. I wrote nom. npm start. Okay. I wrote npm start. Let us just go back to our browser. Okay. Let us go back to our browser. And my app looks very bad now. Oh my God. All the CSS that we wrote is gone now. Oh my God. Oh my God. Everything is broken now. Let me drink water. सारी मेहनत में पानी फिर गया. Oh ho. All the CSS is gone now. And let me tell you, in today's assignment, you will have to delete all your CSS also. You will have to delete all your CSS. Are you ready for that? Are you ready for that? Some people are saying, no. We have made our components very beautiful. I can't do that. Cool. Some people are saying, cut gaya hai mera. Yes. Now what we will do, we will try to make our app we will try to design our app using Tailwind CSS. Okay. We will try to design our app using Tailwind CSS. Let us just see how this thing works. Okay. First of all, let's try to modify our header itself. Okay. Let's try to modify our header. Where is our header? Where is the component? Header component. Okay. Where is my header component? Here is it. Right. So we have this header component. Let us just, they have come one on top of other, right? Let us just make this header as a flexbox first. Okay. Let us just make this component as a flexbox first. How do you make it as a flex? How do you make it as a flex? So basically, you do it by writing display flex, right? In Tailwind, how do we do it? I no longer need this header class. I will do it using something known as flex. I will write my class name as flex. If I go see, it has become a flex. They have come adjacent to each other. Got it? Right? This is how you use it. Now, suppose if you don't know how to, now suppose if, now what I want to do, I want to make spaces between them, right? I want to make this header align. How I will give space between them? How I will give space between them? Right? How I will give? We do something like justify space between, right? We do space between, right? Space between. How do we do this? I know it, right? I'm just showing you how will you search. Suppose if you have to do something inside Tailwind, you have to search it here, right? Suppose I want to search. So what I can give it, something like this, space X, space Y, right? So it gives you the space. And now you see this also, right? So it says that, okay, you need to give margin top, space Y7. You need to write space Y7 for margin top. Okay. 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 But you would say, Akshay, are you mad? You are asking us to remember all this? Akshay, are you mad that you are asking us to remember all these classes? No. I'll tell you a very amazing thing right now. It is not possible to remember all these classes. So here comes one extension that will rescue us from this, right? That extension is known as Tailwind CSS IntelliSense. Okay. Okay, so there is this extension, Tailwind CSS IntelliSense. Okay, this is a very intelligent, very powerful Tailwind extension. This is very handy. You would love, I used to hate when I started working on Tailwind. I used to hate Tailwind because I had to remember all these classes. But I saw that, okay, they had a plugin, they had an extension for them. And this extension is very handy. If you are writing Tailwind, you should always have this extension with you. Okay. You will always have this extension with you. Now, what will happen is it gives you amazing stuff. Okay. Suppose I made this, right? Now I want to make my logo a little small in height and width. Suppose if I want to make this logo a little small in height and width. Okay. Let's make this logo as 100 pixels. How would you do that, right? So with the help of my extension, our VS Code will suggest us these classes. How? I'll tell you. So this is my image, right? This is my title. This is the image. This is the logo. How will it suggest us? I write my H. See, I have written my H and I written hyphen, right? So it tells exactly what all can you use. These are not the classes. These are not the CSS classes. These are not the normal CSS classes. These are the classes which Tailwind is offering to us. Okay. So many classes I can give. And if you hover onto these classes, it also shows you what CSS it will apply. So if I write H12, it will actually apply height as 3 rem, which is equivalent to 48 pixels. Does that make sense? Right? So it basically says that height is 48 pixels. Suppose if I want to give height as 100 px, how would I give my height as 100 px? Let me move to a class which is closer to 100 px. See, it is 96 px. If I write h24, it is 96 px. Suppose if I give h28, it is 112 px. Let's give it h28. Right? Let's give it h28 and let us see. It made this 100 px, right? It looks cool. Looks cool, right? So basically now I have my 100 px height for it. Now what you can do is, suppose if I want to give some padding to it. So you give padding by writing p hyphen and then you have this padding, right? This padding, suppose I want to give padding of 8 px, right? So I'll give P2, right? If I give P2, so it gave the padding of 8 px. And let me show it to you. If I inspect it, right, it is actually giving it padding. See, it is actually giving it padding of 0.5 rem, which is 8 px, right? Exactly same. And see, if you hover on it, right, the best thing is, suppose if you want to see that what CSS is applied by P2, you hover onto it. That extension will show you exactly what CSS will be put. Padding 0.5 rem, padding 8 px. Okay. So this is how it works. This is how CSS classes works. Now let us just try to write even more. Okay. Let us just try to write even more. Okay. We can do a lot more cool stuff inside it. Suppose if I only wanted to give padding on my left side, right? Let's give padding only on my left side. How would I give it? Padding only on the left side? I will give it like this, right? I will give it like this, PL, right? No. How do we give it? PL and hyphen padding left. See, now if you go, I write PL2, that means I have given it padding left of 0.5 rem. Similarly, for right, what do you use? PR. For right, you use PR. Okay. So suppose if I want to give my padding on the x-axis, if I want to give my padding on the x-axis, I will give it px. Okay. What will px do? Now let us just try to see. That what CSS will they apply. See, if you hover onto it, it applies padding left as 0.5, padding right. Okay. Suppose if I want to give it in y-axis, how will I write? It is py. Right? It is py. Okay. It is py. And if you just give p, it applies it to everywhere, right? When you give it padding, it's not right, left or something. It applies it to all sides. Cool. So it is easy. You know, earlier when you are initially learning it, so it might take, you know, if you will give padding once, twice, thrice, you will remember everything. I am telling you honestly, I have never used Tailwind in any of the production projects. I have recently started using Tailwind in my personal projects because, you know, I learned Tailwind. I started writing Tailwind just because I wanted to teach this. Just because I wanted to teach this to this course, in this live course. And I was feeling very bad initially. I thought that, okay, this is a headache to understand why we are writing P hyphen, H hyphen. But trust me, when you start writing it right, after 1 week of writing Tailwind CSS, you will be very comfortable. You will not have to refer to the documentation again. I'm telling you, It is easy. Okay, cool. So this is how I write. Let us do more things, right? Let us just try to make this list as a flex again, right? Because I need my navigation to be like that, right? So let us just try to make a list. Where is our list? Here we have nav items. So in my UL, let me give a class name as flex. Okay, we made it flex. So now we got this. Okay, we have got this up. Okay, now I want to give my padding to this. How will I give my padding? Top and bottom. How will I give my padding top and bottom? PY, exactly. PY. So let me give my padding top and bottom to this. Okay, let me give it PY of 10. Let's see. So I give my PY of 10. See, it aligned properly, right? Now let us give some gap. How will I give a gap between these? How will I give a gap between these items? How will I give a gap between these items? I can do something like PX, right? I can do PX, right? I can do PX. And see, if I hover onto it, right? I want to give it, it is clickable already. It is clickable already. See, if I want to go to about us page, it is going to about us page properly, right? So I just want to give it some padding on the X axis. So I'll give it PX, right? So let us give a class name of PX of 2. When I say PX of 2, that means I think PX of 2 would be sufficient. Yes, so home looks better. I need to give this class to all these LIs. Okay, so let me give it all these LIs. Okay, now they look good. Now let me give a space between. How do I give a space between? Can you help me? I will ask you, how will you give a space between? Quickly, everybody in the chat, go back to Tailwind documentation, open Tailwind documentation and find out what we need to write. What CSS will I write? Find it down. Open this Tailwind CSS. Try to find it out what we will given. I want to I want to give I want to align this header properly. I want to align this flex. I want to align this flag quickly. I'll give you some time quickly. Quickly. Space X. Okay. So what it does is, let me hover it. It says justify content space between. What CSS it is applying? Justify content space between. See, now it is aligned properly. Now it is aligned properly on the navigation bar. Awesome. Right. So what can we do is, let us give some background color to our header. Okay. How do we give it background color? Quickly find it out on the Tailwind website. How will you give the background color? Okay, let us not go to this find. Let us find it using our extension. Okay, we can do a lot of stuff using our extension. Let us just try to find. I'll tell you. Suppose I want to give red color to my background. So there is something known as I let me start writing BG, right? If I write background, so this means background, and I write hyphen, I can write red. Let's not give it red. Red would be bad. Tell me a good color. Let's take a good color. Okay. Okay. Good color. Let's make it pink. Okay. Let's make it pink. Up. Let's make it pink. So background BG pink. See, as soon as I write BG pink, it shows me all the shades of pink that I can use. it gives me all the shades of pink that we can use, right? So it is handy. Let me use a lighter version of pink. Okay, it is BG Pink 50, right? So see, it gave us the background, right? It gave us the background of pink. Cool. So you can do a lot of stuff using this, right? Let us also give shadow. Suppose I don't know how to use shadows. Suppose I want to give shadow to it. Cool thing, what we can do is I can write shadow over here. See, SHADOY. It already suggests you classes. See, we already have shadow classes here. So, you have to, the class names are very intuitive. The class names are very intuitive. So you have to, and I don't know how people used to work before this extension, right? But this extension helps me a lot, to be very honest. It helps me a lot. Otherwise, it will be very tough to remember all this, right? But once you start doing it, you exactly know what you have to write. Suppose if I give shadow large, okay, let me give it shadow LG. So see, it gives you shadow, right? It gives us shadow, right? It gives us shadow down. Cool. So let us just try to style our this search box now. Okay. Let's just try to style our search box. Okay. We have enough of styling our header. Our header look decent, right? I think this logo is not a PNG. It's a JPG, right? So it has a white color background to it. But you understood, right? How it does, right? Let's give a let's go to our body, right? In our search container. In our search container, let us just trial our search container. First of all, let us just give it some padding margin, right? It does not look good. So let us give it some padding. How will I give my padding? Quickly, tell me. Let's give it some padding. Let's write P5. Okay, let's give it padding all around. P5. See, it gave padding. Okay, so let us just make this also pink. Let's just make this also pink so that it distinguishes. I have given pink, right? Let us make this as, let's give it margin. So if I give it margin of 5, of margin or 2 maybe, okay. Let's give it a lesser margin. Cool. So I have given it margin of 2. Cool. And let us give it margin on top and bottom only, right? And let us give it a little more margin. It looks very sticky to the header. Let's not stick it to the header. See, I'm very bad at writing CSS, so just pardon me, right? If I am doing it again and again. The people who are very good at CSS would do this in one go. It takes me a lot of time. I have to do again and again. Okay, so we have this, right? Now let us just style this search box. Okay, let's just give it some padding margin on the x-axis. Okay, let's give a padding on the margin on the x-axis to this search button. Where is my search button? Here is my search button. Let's give it this button a class name. Class name, search button. Let's give it padding of 5, not 5. Let's make it small. Padding of 5 and a margin of 5. Okay, let's just save. Oh, it just made it very big. Okay. And let's give it a background also. I don't even see that. It doesn't look like a button. So let's make it look like a button. Okay. Let's make it look like a button. What color should I give it? Let's make it green. Okay. Let's make our search button green, or let's make it purple. Purple will go with pink. Okay. How do I make a background purple? How do I make a background purple? I'll write BG purple, PURPLE. BG purple, right? See, sometimes when you're writing, right, now this extension isn't showing me any suggestions. Sometimes I have seen this issue. Tailwind does not show you the suggestion. When Tailwind is not showing you suggestion, do a control plus space bar. Control plus space bar. Control plus space bar. I am on the Mac, so control plus space bar. In Windows, Also, I think it would be a control plus spacebar. So sometimes when you are writing, right, it does not give you suggestion. So use a control plus spacebar, it starts showing you suggestions. Okay. Let's give it purple. Purple 900 or something. Okay. Oh, this button looks a little ugly. Okay. So it's a darker color, right? So we need the font white or something. Let's make the text white here, right? So how do you make the text white? Let us just give it text white. Okay. Let's just give it text white. Now it looks like cool, right? Now this button looks cool. Okay. Now let's make this button as rounded corners. Okay. Now let's make this button as rounded corners. How do you make it rounded corners? Okay. Some people are saying not cool. I know there would be people who would not like this, right? It's okay. It's okay. Have your judgment. Are you liking it till now or not? Right? Cool or not cool? Cool or not cool? Cool or not cool? Okay. A lot of people are saying cool. Some people are saying not cool. Some people are writing not cool. Okay. Exclamation mark cool. Okay, man. Okay. Cool. So let us just, how do you make it round? So I write rounded. See, it is easy. I don't remember the classes now. I don't remember what is rounded. I just start writing round. It suggests me. Okay, there's something known as rounding LG. Let's use that. It makes the button rounded, right? It makes the button rounded. Suppose if I make it rounded XL, so it rounds it even more. Okay, it rounds it even more. If we give it, so let us just see what all I can do. If I give it rounded full will make it a circle. But because its height is not proper, so it is not making it as a circle. It's looking very bad, right? It's looking bad, isn't it? Let us give it rounded MD, right? Yeah, this looks like material UI button. Okay, cool. So basically, this is how you do, right? So let's try to write some code for it. Okay, so now let's go back and modify our cards. Okay, let's modify our cards. Let me first of all close this up. Let's modify our cards. Where were our cards? Where were our cards? Restaurant card. So let's go to card. Let's give it a width. How much width did we give last time? How much width did we give last time? 200 px. Okay, 200 px. Let's just see what is close to 200 px. So this is close to 200 px. See, W52 is 208 px. W56 is what? 224 px. Let's just see. Our cards become small. But what if I exactly have to give it 200 px? What if I exactly had to give it 200 px? There can be cases, isn't it? There can be cases where we might have to give it exactly precisely 200 px, right? If Tailwind does not gives us classes which are not exactly that 200 px, how will I give it? So there is something known as square bracket notation. Square bracket notation. Okay, note it down. There is something known as square bracket notation. What you can do it, you can just write a square bracket and give a dynamic value to it. You can give it 200 px like this. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? You should obviously know, because there would be so many cases where you don't have to do this dynamically. You have to precisely mention the height. So you can do it like this. Awesome. Okay. So this is how you make it exactly 200 px. If I go back, inspect it, and if I see, where is it? See, this gives the width 200 px. A cool thing about CSS is a cool thing about CSS is that, a cool thing about Tailwind CSS is that let's go to sources and let us see our file. Let us see our CSS file. Where is our CSS file? How will I find my CSS file over here? All files, CSS file here. This CSS file. See, it is very small, isn't it? See, it is loading on BG purple 900, BG pink 50, rounding MD, rounded full. How is it loading all of this? Who is doing this stuff? Who is doing this stuff? Parcel is doing this stuff. Parcel is doing this stuff, and Parcel is taking the help of Post CSS and Tailwind library to compile all those classes and ship it into our project. Ship it into our project. Does that make sense? The best thing about Tailwind CSS is it does not include, see, Tailwind CSS has thousands of classes. Thousands of classes will be there for min height, min width, height, font size, font family, font style, font weight. Suppose if you give font weight, how do you give font weight? You can give font weight like font thin, font light, font normal. So Tailwind CSS makes sure that you will only include the classes that you have used in your project. Only those will be shipped to production. Isn't it cool? Only the classes that you will use in your projects will be shipped to the production. It makes the bundle size CSS very small. It makes the CSS very small. Okay. So Tailwind only includes, Tailwind only includes the files which we have used in. Only those classes that we have used in. We have used shadow LG, so it is bringing this up. But what about dynamic classes? Will Tailwind have included this separately? Will Tailwind has included this separately? Yes or no? Where is our width 200px? See, it created a new class for us. Tailwind does not have this class, right? It just randomly created a dynamic class for us. So I am just diving deep into showing you what Tailwind is doing behind the scenes. You should know exactly what Tailwind is doing behind the scenes. It is creating a dynamic class for you. This class was not there inside Tailwind, right? This class is created on the instance, right? So, so let us go back, reset our page. One thing more I wanted to tell you is that whenever you are writing code, right, stick to the native Tailwind classes. Stick to the native Tailwind classes. Don't write dynamic classes. Why? Stick to the native Tailwind classes, which Tailwind offers dynamically. Why? Because that will, first thing is, Tailwind understands it, and Tailwind won't create a new class for every dynamic class you write. So it will be less code and it will maintain the consistency. And let me tell you, all the classes will already be available, right? Most of the time you will rarely get stuck in a place where you might have to use these dynamic classes, but generally try to use what Tailwind offers you by default. Okay. And I would say that, okay, explore it, right? Explore this up, right? If I write W56, it is 224. So 200px or 224px, just use it like this, right? Try to use it. Okay, cool. So let us just style this more, right? Let us just style this more. We will finish it up quickly. Okay. Let's not take a break. We will wrap it up. I will take 15 minutes more. Okay. To wind this up. So let us just try to style our card. So card should have some, let's give it padding margin. Like let's give it padding margin. How do you give padding margin? See, by this time you would have already remembered that how do you give padding margin? Isn't it? Right? You know, right? We just give P5, M5, it will just give you padding margin. See? Let's reduce the margin and padding a little, right? Let's reduce the padding to P2 and M2 maybe, right? So once you start doing it, you will understand. How do you give it shadow? How do you give it shadow? See, how do you remember it? How do you remember it? I'll just write shadow here. See, shadow here. Right? So it gives me the option. I write shadow LC. It gave us shadows, right? For the card. Okay. Let's make these card as background pink again, right? I don't know why am I doing this, but I'm just trying to do this. Okay. So let's give it same. So our cards are pink now. Right? So now let's make this name of the restaurant bold. How would you make the name of the restaurant bold? This is Kerala Food Hub. Let's make it a little larger and bold. How would you make it? Let's give this a class. What? See, you already remember now, right? It is easy, right? When we write, it is font bold. How would you make it large? So see, I don't remember now. What was it? But I remember Excel to Excel. So you start writing to Excel. It automatically shows you what to Excel you can write. It is text to Excel. So why am I doing you? Is that this plugin, this extension is really very nice. Really nice. Really nice. It becomes very handy. 2x, Kerala Food Club. Okay. Let's not make it 2x. It is looking very large. Let's make it XL. Okay. Kerala Food Club. Now let us just bring these cards side by side. How do I bring these cards side by side? How will I do that? Flex, right? So let's make the container flex. Where is the container? In the body.js, right? Here is it, right? We were looping on this restaurant list. Now I don't need these class names. Now I don't need any class names, okay? We will just be using Tailwind class names. I'll make it a flex. I made it a flex. It came in one row, right? It came in one row, but ugly. Let's wrap these up. Let's wrap this up. So how do I wrap it up? Write wrap. So I don't know what class flex will offer. I'll just write wrap. It automatically, see, the search of this extension is really very nice. Do you see a difference? I don't, it is not just a, what will say, pre-search. What do you call that term as? Pre-search, prefix match search. It is not a prefix match search. It is not a prefix match search. If you don't understand it, just write wrap. I just wrote wrap. So it gave me, there is something known as flex wrap. There is something known as flex wrap reverse. I can reverse it also. It's a wild card match. Okay. Okay. So I can write flex wrap. Okay. Something like that. So wrap, flex wrap. So we have our UI ready. Isn't it cool? Right? Isn't it cool? It did not take much time to write it, right? It did not take much time to write it. It did not take much time to write it, and it looks cool, right? One thing which Tailwind saves us from is what? One best thing as a developer I like about Tailwind is what? It saves me a lot of time because now I don't have to switch between back and forth between CSS, HTML file, CSS file, HTML file, CSS file, HTML file, CSS file, isn't it? Suppose I am writing a button, I can directly style it on the go. Isn't it? I can just style it on the go. And sometimes what used to happen was it is easier for debugging also. Why is it easier for debugging? Why is it easier for debugging? I'm saying debugging CSS, right? So suppose when I say debugging, right? Suppose if I have to change this color to green, if I have to make this search bar to green in an older way, if I had to change this search bar to green, what would I have done? I have to go to my JS file. I have to find where is that button. Suppose if I found this button, I will have to read a class name. So the class name would be search btn, right? The class name would be search btm. Then you have to find this class name. Then you have to go to my index.css. Then I have to find that class name. Then I have to put in CSS. How lengthy it was, right? It used to be very lengthy. Now what I have to do, I exactly know how will I make it green. How will I make it green, my friends? I'll just go here. I know this is the button. I'll just make it green. Right, cool. I just made it green. How much time did it take? I don't have to remember the class name. I don't have to, and I don't have to worry about, I don't even have to worry about making the unique class names, right? Some developers come in and write, they create a class name as a green button, and then they will write background green, and then they will use that green button everywhere else, right? That's how we do, right? That's how we do, right? We make a class name as green button. We name a class name as green button, and then in index.css, we write green button, and we give it as a background color as green, right? This is how we do, isn't it? This is how we do, right? This is how we do. And then we use green button everywhere else. But suppose if there are 10 developers working on it, if there are 10 developers working on a project, will everyone use this class name which you created? Will everyone use this class name which you created? I have seen this so many times, even in large scale production applications. I am telling you, I have worked in large companies and I have seen shitty code written. Every developer comes and create its own class names. Every developer will create its own class name. Happens or not? Have you seen this ever? Have you yourself don't remember. Today I created this green button, right? Tomorrow I will forget I created something known as green button. And there is a confusion. Some people write green button, some people will write green BTN. So remembering these names, following the convention, all headache is gone now. Don't you see? You would have seen that some people write BTN, some people write button, and it is very, oh my God, it's such a pain to figure out, go back to CSS, find out what the class name will be, and then, oh my God, such a pain. Right? And then you have to reuse it again and again. And I can do it, right? And then it's very painful, right? So now one headache that Tailwind has removed is I don't have to worry about what the name of this classes will be. Nowhere. I don't have to switch files also. Nowhere. Don't have to switch files. Okay? Cool. So I just wanted to tell you that these are good perks. What happened to this, right? Where is my flex wrap? Where is my flex wrap? Oh, where is my flex wrap? Oh, I wrote flex wraps. Sorry, my bad. I misspelled it. Okay, I have my flex wrap. Now, I'll tell you one more cool thing. Okay, one more cool thing. I'll tell you one more cool thing. Now, we can write something like this, okay? Suppose you would have seen that in your input box, right? In your input box, or maybe, okay, when you hover onto the button, it changes the color. You would have seen this, right? If you hover onto this button, it changes the color. How would you do that? If you hover onto this button, try to find it out yourself. See, today I can tell you all these things But trust me, you will have to do everything on your own. There are thousands of classes that you can use. I would recommend you to become very good at searching things inside this documentation. Go ahead and search it down. As in when I hover on this, it should change its color. How will you do that? Search down. Do it yourself. Don't see other people who are writing over here. You search for yourself. Go to this Tailwind website. Try to search. See, because today I will tell you 10, 20 class names, right? But at the end of the day, when you are building your app, you will have to do it. So I want you to be capable enough to find out exactly what it needs to. So how will you find out? Let me tell you. See, you will find out hover, because I want to put some, right? So if I click on this hover, I will see how I am putting hover. See the example. See this example. I am making it darker. See, it was light. So basically it says that it was BG violet 500. When I hover it, it changed to BG violet 600. Easy, isn't it? Very easy, right? It is so easy. Once you use it, now you will never forget it. Once you use it, you will never forget it. Okay, let's go back to body.js and let's go back. Here we have this green color, right? Button. Let's make it pink or purple once again. Okay, let's make it purple. Dark purple. Okay, and if I hover it, if I suppose hover it, then see, how do I write hover? This extension will also help you. If you start writing hover, it shows you. You can write hover. Hover what? You can do a lot more cool stuff. See, when you hover, right? See, it shows a lot of things. I can also give something known as first letter. So if you want to apply CSS to only first letter, cool, right? If you want to apply CSS just to first letter, if you want to apply CSS to just first line, if you have to apply CSS, do you know what is before after? There was before after, right? This is how you use before, after, first, last. Everything is available. Suppose if you have odd, even, nth child. See what it is using behind the scenes. Nth child. Try it out. Everything is available inside Tailwind. Let's just use hover. Okay, let's just use hover. So suppose on hover, let me make it as gray. Okay, how do I make it as gray? Let me make it as gray 100, 900 or something. Okay? Let me make it as gray. So this is how you hover it, right? How you hover it. So if I hover it, see, it became gray. It looks black, but because I have made it a little darker, right? Let's make it gray 500. Oh, a darker version of gray is black, right? That's why. See, got it? Play it up. I am not going to go ahead and use all of these, right? Play it up yourself. You will understand it. It is very easy. Okay. Will you play it yourself? Right. Let's not like, I can go. I am not going to like go ahead and show all of this to you, but you can find it out. Everything is, I'm telling you, the documentation is amazing for Tailwind. Amazing. Now Meghna has a very great question that I can't reuse it, right? I can't reuse it. How is it? Suppose if I want to use background purple 900, I want to make the background purple for this div. I have to again write it. Is it good or bad? Is it good or bad? I have to again write it. Is it good or bad? It's not making a copy of this. It's not making a new copy of this class. Suppose if you write this, it is not a bad practice. This is how you do it. This is how you do it, right? This is a good practice. I don't know where did I put that background purple. Yep, it's a good practice. This is how you do it. Okay. It won't. So now if you will go to the CSS file, right? If I search for purple, it will be just included once. See, this is just included once. So you don't have to worry about optimization. Parcel, Post, CSS, Tailwind, all of them are doing it for themselves. Cool. Okay. Now, before moving on to pros and cons, right? Before moving on to pros and cons, let us see one more thing which I wanted to show you. Okay. That will help you a lot. Okay. So suppose if let me remove this purple. It's looking very dark. Right? It is looking very dark. The cool thing about CSS, the Tailwind CSS is that, okay, it also works with HMR, right? HMR. So, yep. Cool. Let us just go back and let me just show you one more thing. Okay, so suppose if my input box focuses, I want to change the background color. How will I write? Let us practice it once again. If my input box focuses, let's write it on focus. Let's try to find out how do we write it. On my input box, this is search input. How will I write focus? Let us just see if there is focus. Yes, see. It already shows you there is focus within, focus visible, focus. Okay, focus. Let's change the background color to green. I don't know why am I doing this. Green. When you focus on that input box. Let's give it a padding of 2 and margin of 2 or something. I don't know. What? Padding of 2, margin of 2. Okay. Save it. See, now here is my input box. If I click on it, see it became green. Do you see it became green? It became green, right? It is very light version of green. I don't know if you are able to see it or not. It became green. Let me make it a darker green. You will see. How will I make it darker green? I'll make it 200. Okay. See, it became green. So you can write, hover, focus, whatever you want to do, you can do it, right? Play with it. This is your homework, your assignment, play with it. Okay, cool. This is how you do. It's easy, right? At the end of the day, are you finding it tough or easy? Are you writing it tough or easy? Okay, easy. Cool, easy, right? That is how it should be, exactly. Earlier, for initial, when you are starting up with Tailwind, right? Earlier, I was also frustrated. I'll have to go back again and again. Now you can ask me a question, Akshay, should I keep this site open in my tab all the time? Should I keep this open? Should I keep searching for everything once again? Let me tell you, you will just need to do this for few days. After a few days, you would exactly know what CSS to write. It is very easy to pick up. There is an initial learning curve, but once you know how you do stuff, it becomes easy. I'm telling you with my honestly, right? I'm telling you honestly. Okay. Let me show it to you once again. One more cool thing. How do you write media queries inside it? You write media queries, right? Suppose I want to build a feature. On my mobile phone. Okay, let me go ahead. On my mobile phone. Right? On my mobile phone, so my CSS should change according to the width of my screen. Does that make sense? My CSS should change according to the width of my screen. Okay, I'll show you how we can write this. Right? So we write it something like this. I'll show it to you. Okay. So I'll tell where is my header? So what I'll do is, suppose, how do you write media queries? First of all, do you know how to write media queries? How do you write media queries? People who don't know about how to write media queries, first of all, you learn how to write media queries. Then this will make sense to you what I'm teaching you. Okay. But for now, I'll tell you. Okay. So I'll tell you how we do it, right? Suppose if my website, very carefully listen to this line very carefully, you would understand it, right? Suppose if my website crosses the threshold of small device. Listen to me very carefully. Suppose if my website crosses the width of the small device, crosses the threshold of my small device. Small device. So there are three types of devices for which we write CSS. One is small, one is medium, one is large. Right? Small, medium, large. Okay, phone, tablet, desktop. Phone, tablet, laptop. Phone is small, tab is the middle one, and laptop is the bigger one. Okay, so as in when my threshold of small devices crosses, so make my header yellow. Does that make sense to you? As in when my small devices length crosses, make my header yellow. Okay, make my header yellow. Or let's not make it yellow, let's make it purple, because pink and purple matches, right? Let's make it purple. As in when the threshold crosses. How do I write that CSS? I'll write as in when my small device threshold crosses, change my background color to purple 50. Okay. Or let's not make it purple, let's make it blue. Because, okay, let's make it blue. Blue 50. Okay. Now let us just see. So this is how I write. Now, right now it is pink. Let me increase the size. Do you find it cool? See, it changes to pink, to blue. Pink to blue. Cool, right? SM means, I write SM. SM means small devices. Right? As soon as I cross the small device limit, change my CSS. As in when I cross the small device limit, change the CSS. Got it? As in when I change my medium device limit, change my CSS even more. Let's make it yellow. Okay, let's make it yellow. I don't know why am I doing this. You should never do this, right? Keep your UI consistent. I'm just telling you, just to demonstrate. Okay, so don't do this in production. Otherwise, your app will look green, yellow, pink in different devices. Right? See, I'm changing it. It changed to blue. It changed to yellow. Did you see this? On the phone, it will look pink. As soon as it crosses threshold of small device, it becomes blue. As soon as it crosses the medium size limit, it becomes yellow. Cool. So don't do this. Okay. Don't do this. Right. But I am just telling you that you can do cool stuff with Tailwind. Right. You can do all this stuff. What things you can do? Suppose in your small devices, you want this logo to be full and this menu should come down and login should come down. Understood, right? Can you do that? Will you do that as a homework? Will you do that as a homework? Awesome. So what will you do? Suppose if I have to make the logo as full width. If I'm on my small device, I want my logo to not shrink but be full and center line. My logo to be full and center line. Right? Cool, right? So this is your homework. Okay, do this. Okay, this is your homework. So this was Tailwind CSS. This is how you can do. We saw that how we can write it like this. Now let me discuss an important point for your system design interviews and what my perspective about Tailwind is. You know, you will have to justify it to center and do all that stuff, right? When you make your logo in your small device, make the logo in the center and full, right? Make the logo in the center. Okay. I just wanted to show you. So now it looks, our app looks very randomly colored. Okay. It's not looking very beautiful, but I trust you. You people are amazing at CSS. I have seen your assignments. You have, but I wanted to show you that this is how things are done inside Tailwind. Okay. Last thing for today, last thing that I want to cover today is, let us see the pros and cons of Tailwind. Okay. Let us see the pros and cons of Tailwind. What do you think are the pros of Tailwind? What do you think are the pros of Tailwind? What do you think are the pros of Tailwind? It is easy to debug. Exactly right. Less code is shipped. Exactly right. Write it down. Okay. Write it down for yourself. Write it down in your notebook. Code is less. Easy to use. No duplicate CSS. No duplicate CSS. Bundle size is small. Time is faster development because you don't have to switch between files. Right? Easy to debug. Exactly. We can do almost everything that we can do in normal CSS with Tailwind. It is a mature framework now, so we can do it. Now, people have seen a lot. It is much more customizable when it is compared to Material UI or something, right? It gives you a lot more control. It gives you a lot more control over things, right? And one more cool thing is, right? One more cool thing is that you can customize however you want your UI to be. It doesn't enforces you to do something. It is just a newer way of writing CSS. Make sense? It is a newer way of writing CSS. And trust me, with JSX, and with Tailwind, you don't have to move outside your JS files. You will see, after we have learned about JSX, right? We never went to our index.html, isn't it? We never go to our index.html now. We do everything inside my JS file. Everything inside my JS file. My HTML, CSS, everything. JavaScript is also in JS file. I do everything inside JavaScript. Right? What is a con of writing Tailwind CSS? What is a con? Too much classes, too much classes, too much code. One more extra library. One more extra library is not a con because it is always a trade-off, right? You are using Tailwind, so is it worth it, right? So it is worth it to install a library because it is giving you so much features. It is okay, right? It is okay. But first con is there is a initial learning curve associated to it. There is a high learning curve, isn't it? Read it down. When you are into, why I am telling you all this is, when you are going to your system design round, when you are giving interviews, so your interviewer can ask you, how would you style your components? You can give the interviewer a lot of things, right? All those things that we studied. We can do inline CSS, we can write CSS, we can write SAS, we can write SCSS, we can use Material UI, Bootstrap, Chakra, whatever. We can use Tailwind also. But when you say you will use Tailwind, you have to justify what are pros and cons of Tailwind. A very big con is that, suppose there are hundreds of engineers out there in market. Suppose there are 100% engineer. How many percent engineer, how many percent front-end developer would know Tailwind? How many percent out of 100? Very less, right? 0.001% people would hardly know Tailwind. And it comes with a learning curve. So this is one con, that every new developer that comes to your team, it will take some time for him to understand what is happening. Oh my God, what is this? What black magic did you do over here? Suppose showing this to a friend, right? He would say, what black magic did you do? Come on, right? This one line is doing what not, right? Exactly, right? It looks ugly, isn't it? It looks ugly, isn't it? Let me show it to you, right? Let me show it to you, and Tailwind showcases it beautifully. Let's go to Tailwind component. How your code looks like. When you build, let's explore the template. Let me browse some components inside Tailwind. Let's go to live preview. Okay. So let us see if you have to build this navigation bar, right? If you have to build this navigation bar, let's see the code for it. See this? To build this navigation bar, how many classes they have given? Think about reading this code and understanding what this code is doing. Think about reading this code. Let's go to some other component. Okay, let me show it to you. Some other component. Let me show it to you. Right? Let's go to header. Not let's go to this. These are pre-built things, right? Which Tailwind gives to us. Let's go to this product list. Okay, this is product list. Okay, suppose if you have to build this product list. Okay, suppose if you have to build this product list. Let us see the code. See this code. See how many classes they have written. See this. See these many classes. In one line, they have written 10-20 classes. It looks scary, isn't it? This HTML looks scary. Right? Suppose if I build this, right? If you see the code, now see this code. Now your actual code will look something like this. Is it very much readable? Is it very much readable? Just see this. Let me zoom it for you. Let me zoom this for you. Now read this code. Read this code. And this is the Tailwind's official website, right? They are saying that you have to write code like this. You have to write code like this. This is bad. Oh ho ho. Akshay, since 3 hours you are telling us the pros of Tailwind, and now you have shown us the cons of Tailwind. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Now let me tell you, my dear friends, every cool thing comes with a con as well. There are so many pros of Tailwind, and there is a bigger con of Tailwind, that it makes the class name looks a little ugly. It makes the class name looks a little ugly. It is not so much ugly also as I have made it to look like when I am saying, oh my God, this is look. It's okay. Okay. We read this code. Think about having, see, if not here, this code would have been in your CSS files, isn't it? If not here, this code would have been in your CSS file, isn't it? You will have to map your class names to that CSS file class name and do that back and forth. So basically, it is your job as a software architect, as a project owner, is to take that decision whether you want to use Tailwind in your project or not. I have never used Tailwind in my in my what you'll say production in the companies that I have worked for. I have never used it. I am just exploring it. So I was exploring it with empty head, right? With no biased opinion about Tailwind. I today, if you ask me, I still don't have a very good opinion about Tailwind. I am teaching you because this is trending. People and the industry is now moving towards Tailwind. Suppose if you go to your job where the existing projects are using Tailwind, then there is no other way. You will have to use Tailwind, right? So Tailwind has its pros, Tailwind has its cons. Material UI has its pros, Material UI has its cons. Material UI has its cons, isn't it? So what you use is not the problem. Whenever you use a library or a framework, you should exactly know what are its pros and cons. in your system design round, if suppose your interviewer says that, okay, Akshay, you said, okay, you will use Tailwind for writing, styling your components. Why would you use Tailwind? You should be able to tell. What are cons of Tailwind? You should be able to tell that it takes initial learning curve. So new developers will take some time to be productive when we use Tailwind. And it also makes our code look a little ugly when it compromises readability a little. Okay. So this is what you have to tell your interviewer. Coming on to my personal experience, I would love to use Tailwind in one of my projects, which I do, because it is very fast to build. Okay. If I'm working in a startup, I want to build applications fast. I would love to use Tailwind. Okay. I just as an experiment. But if you're trying to build a project which will stay for 10 years, then I think Tailwind is not that mature yet. Or I don't know. I think industry has not seen this type of code yet, right? So I don't know. It is a call which senior engineers takes, but I am still, if you ask me that how much marks would I give to Tailwind out of 10, I would still say it is a 6 or a 7. It is not, right? 6 or a 7, not 10. Right? But yes, it is. But yes, if you ask me, it is really good. So now I want to ask you all how much marks you would give to Tail out of 10. How much marks you would give? Oh, 4, 7, 8, 10. Oh my God. There are people who give 10 out of 10. There are people who are giving 100 out of 10. 55 minus 1. Minus 1 out of 10. Oh my God. Oh my God. 8, 8, 8. Yes, it is good, right? It is good. It's not that bad either. I would not give it 4 or 5. No. It increases your, as we move ahead in this live course, we will be building more projects where I will be using Tailwind from the scratch. Then you will realize the potential of Tailwind even more. Got it? Then you will realize the potential of Tailwind even more. But it is not that bad. It is really good. It saves a lot of time when you are writing code. Saves a lot of time. So if you want to develop something fast, use Tailwind. Okay, cool. Some people are saying, will it increase the DOM weight? Doesn't matter. Because see, if you are not writing these classes, you would have bought that piece of code in your CSS files, right? Anyways, so it's okay. Don't worry. It is, see, at the end of the day, JSX is HTML and Tailwind classes are what? Normal CSS, right? Are normal CSS. That's all it is at the end of the day, right? But it is doing your optimizations and all those things for you already. So my dear friends, we have 9 minutes left for 3 hours to close. Let's close this session. I'll give you back your 9 minutes, right? Okay. So I am just concluding it, right? This was the session for styling the React apps. This was Namaste React chapter 10. Jo dikhta hai wo bikta hai, right? So this was all about styling the components, styling the React apps. How do you style your components in different ways, right? First way was what? Let us just quickly revise. First way was what? First